Hello, everybody. Hey, it's Chris from Charity Board Gamer. This is once again the Meeples of Joy podcast. This is episode number 14. We still haven't recorded episode 7. Don't worry, we'll probably do that at some point. And I will probably be watching very soon the wonderful movie Cats. I hate myself for that. But
hey, you're the one that came up with that.
Well,
Wait,
I want.
So.
Okay, remember we hit a certain goal. We hit a goal during our extra life thing, and I promised
Yes.
people that I would finally watch Cats in its entirety because I didn't want to do the one chip challenge or anything too dangerous to my body, like getting my legs waxed that one time. Because my wife.
I'd rather get my legs waxed than watch Cats.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There's no hair growing in most of the places around my legs anymore. Like from that wax job, because Beth made like this homemade wax, and it was a nightmare. That's not the first time that I've had my legs waxed for extra life. So yeah, but tonight, folks, I know. So tonight, folks, we are going to be hanging out with the amazing Jessica Walker of Pencil First Games. We're going to be talking, of course, about Mall Peak, which I'm already getting ready to kind of rock that game a little bit later with the family. We're doing actually the Battle of Boar tonight, which is going to be combining Skulk Hollow and Mall Peak. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that, of course, in the interview. And then, of course, we're going to talk about our charity that we're supporting this month, as well as the surprise top 5, which we told Jessica just a little while ago that there's a surprise top 5. And
Definitely
she was
a
like,
surprise.
yeah,
Yep.
she was surprised. Hey, so it was good.
And she still doesn't know the topic either.
Mm-hmm. Which is good. So we're going to take a little bit of time to just kind of pause, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. Just so you know, we're not verbally going to communicate with the chat during this period of time that we're actually doing the recording. However, after we get done with the recording, we will take some time to talk with you all as well. But if you have a question specifically regarding Pencil First Games, whether it be about Mall Peak, Skulk Hollow, Herbaceous, 100 Tori, Floriferous, or gosh, I'm trying to think of the other ones that really stand out. Those are the ones that I play the most. So, but
Sunset Over Water.
Yeah, Sunset Over Water. I remember that, and that's when Ed called you John or something, which was hilarious. He called him John the whole live stream, and I'm just like, I'm not
I didn't
doing
even
anything.
catch it though.
I'm not talking.
I
I know.
didn't catch it till the
I
very
did.
end.
I did. I was like Justin. I was like kept saying Justin afterwards. It was so funny. But yeah, so we're going to be, of course, interacting with you all via typing in the typey chat thing. So if you have any questions, though, please feel free to put them in there, and we will be glad to try to ask them as we're actually doing the interview. So with that, I'm going to take a quick 5-second pause. You know, it's usually about 10 seconds because I've got to get myself into the right mindset.
Well, it's better than the no pause that you used to do. And I
What?
had to cut in the middle of a sentence.
I don't understand what you're talking about. I've never done that. Ever.
Never.
Never. Never, ever. Never, ever, ever. Okay. Sorry, Miss Jackson. Ooh. All right. Here we go. Hey, folks. Welcome to the Meeples of Joy podcast. This is episode number 14. Have we recorded episode 7 yet? No. Will we record episode 7? Possibly. Did I almost skip this episode 14 and call this one episode 15? Because for some reason I'm skipping series of 7s? Yes, that is so true right now. But hey, we're going to be talking about, of course, board games. We're going to be talking about, some of our favorite games that we're playing, sharing stories about it, and also interviewing amazing guests. And Justin's going to have to edit that later. Love you, Justin. And our guest tonight, of course, is somebody that I'm excited to be able to talk to. But first off, the encourager of my chaos, let's say hello to Chelsea.
Hello, and elf barking in the background. Sorry. So, I'm Chelsea. You can find me at Chelka's Corner. And I like to encourage Chris in all his craziness and all his chaotic behavior. I enjoy it. So I usually egg him on and then kind of just, let him run wild. And then I leave it all up to Justin to keep us in check.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I am Justin of Play Games, Spread Joy, and the only thing more chaotic than Chelsea and Chris is Elf in the background, which we love dogs on this channel and listening to them, playing with them, having them around the table as we play games. But what's better is when we have amazing guests. Chris, why don't you introduce the guests now?
So our guest started I think a little over a year ago with Pencil First in their position, and I had built a relationship, of course, with the person that came before her, Anna Maria Jackson Phelps of Girls Game Shelf, and I loved getting involved with the amazing family over at Pencil First Games. So when this person came in, I didn't know what it was going to be like. But I have to say, I am beyond excited and very pleased to be able to have these interactions. And so tonight, folks, we're going to be talking with a wonderful Jessica Walker. Hello, Jessica.
Hello, thanks for having me today.
Thanks for coming on. Of course, there's a Kickstarter going on right now. It's some sort of game. I've never heard of it before at all. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Mall Peak's on Kickstarter right now. Exciting times. It's the standalone sequel to Skull Hollow. If you played that one, they're both two-player asymmetric tactics games where you've got, either the fox in Skull Hollow, or now we have bears in Mall Peak fighting giant guardians. And it is a fun, exciting matchup. Mall Peak is obviously the newest one, and in that we also have the Battle for Boar mode, so you can mix and match the games and even go to 3 to 4 players, which I know you're playing later today, so epic battles right there.
Oh, I'm excited. I am beyond excited. It will be a battle between father and son versus son and wife. So this could be hurtful in our marriage, but we'll find out. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. Folks, don't worry. I've been married for almost 20 years. It's about time. It's about time. These games kind of creep up on you after a while. All the wins and losses and the losses and the losses and the losses and the losses. But I have a chance I might actually win tonight. Yay. But yes, so Jessica, tell us what kind of got you into the industry and kind of what was your beginnings in the board game hobby? When did you really get involved in the hobby? And what were some of the games that you really liked when you started?
Yeah, so I'll go back to when I kind of got into the hobby. Way back as a kid, I played, the good old classics. There was Monopoly and the game of Life and Trouble. I remember fondly from childhood, but I probably didn't get really into like modern games until like the early 2000s. Played a lot with my brother. We tried to get our parents involved. It worked a little bit, but they were like, no, this is not for us. I still to this day try to get them into games though. But we played a lot then. And then probably 2016 or 17, I had a collection that I ended up just I wasn't sure what to do with it because we didn't play that much anymore. I didn't have a game group. So I ended up switching over and figuring out how to play a lot of games solo. And so I am a huge solo gamer now. That's my preferred game method, even though my husband and I will play 2-player games. I have a game group. So still though, solo holds a special place for me.
They usually say never go solo, take a Wookiee. So I'm a little baffled by the solo aspect of gaming. I don't know what that is. I mean, Justin tells me that about there's this solo thing in a lot of games, and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand it.
Well, I don't understand how you don't get it because you talk to yourself so much. You could get away with it.
Wow.
But...
Wow.
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 Usually I'm the saucy one, but Justin is taking my spot tonight.
I know. What is going on? Chelsea, help me out here, please. No.
When you talk about solo play, because it's great to play games solo, learn the game, and then you can teach others as well when you learn it solo.
I don't have anybody to talk to because I don't respond to myself. So
I don't talk to myself. No, I don't. Do I? I don't know.
Sometimes.
Maybe. Yeah, I probably do talk. In my consciousness, I basically talk out loud rather than, thinking it all in my head and then just kind of like, hey, foot, mouth. Yeah, that's good. So, yeah. So you got into the hobby, and of course, like you said, you played some great games. Like you played Monopoly in life, and a lot of people, of course, have certain feelings about Monopoly, but they've never played it probably the correct way. Because the correct way is like 45 minutes for a game at the most. Or if you're playing in a tournament, you're speeding through it in 30 minutes and realizing that everybody else is better at bidding for properties than you are. But it's still, to this day, of course, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm on free parking. I get the money, right?" And I'm like, "No, you don't get anything. What are you talking
Just
about?"
parking there. Just
Yeah,
sit there. That's
yeah,
it.
you just free parking. Here you go. You don't have to pay for anything. You just kind of get to relax there for a little bit, and that's it. So, but what kind of got you into the hobby? Not the hobby, but the industry. What brought you from going from the hobby into pencil first games?
Yep. So I was in digital marketing for like 15 years, I think, and that's what I did. And it was getting to a point where I said, I kind of want to branch out into something else and see if there's something cool out there. So I don't know exactly what made me think of it, but I said, all right, I've talked to a couple publishers here and there because I have my own blog, and I do a little bit of interaction and posting and stuff. So I said, let me reach out to some of the people that I've talked with and just say, hey, are you hiring? do you need somebody with these skills? And Ed was one of them. Ed remembered me because I am that solo player that's played Herbaceous. At that time, it was like 1,000 times, and I've almost played Herbaceous solo 2,000 times now. Which is, what is that? I don't know, but that's
Wow.
my game.
I've never played it solo. Like the last time one of the big games that I played the Pocket Edition with my wife, and I may not have done it as well. And then I played a game against Anna Maria and against oh gosh, Ross from More Games Please, and that was a late night game during a 24-hour marathon that we were doing, and woof, I the one thing I remember is I got the biscuit before Ross did. I did horrible in all the rest of the points, but I got the biscuit, so I was
That's
very
all
happy.
you need to do.
That's all I
That
need.
is it.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's all I want is the biscuit. It's always good. So yeah, so what were you doing before this? Then you said you were doing digital marketing. Who were you?
Yep.
Were in particular companies that we know about, or?
No, I had a company with my dad for a long time, and then that kind of, we ended that sort of. I found a job at another company, and then I said, it's, I know this. I've done this for 15 years. It's kind of time for a change. But although a lot of the stuff that I did before also helps with what I do now, so kind of move that skill set into the industry, and it's fun stuff.
So how do you manage the marketing side for a company coming into this position now? Of course, you filled in the shoes of Anna Maria Jackson Phelps, which we love very dearly. Anna Maria Jackson Phelps, if you ever watch us later, you already know that. But what were some of the things that when you came into your position, what were some things that you kind of saw that you could work on, and some things that you said, okay, how do I keep building this community of people so that way these games continue to be successful? Because if anybody hasn't seen how great a lot of these games are, like Whatnot Cabinet, Floriferous, and now Mall Peak, there's been some really good campaigns for games coming out, and it's just been for us as a family. We of course love the games, but one of the big things that it really does take is marketing and the building relationships with the community, as well as building relationships with media. What were some of the things that you kind of started doing, and then what were some things that you did that maybe were just a little bit different?
Anna Maria was awesome. She set up so much stuff. She just kind of, laid the groundwork. She was amazing. So following in those footsteps, I was like, all right, I gotta gotta make sure I do this right. But a lot of it was learning the platforms too, because what I had done in the past was a lot of Google AdWords. If anybody's familiar with that, that was where I did a lot of marketing. So I didn't do a lot on the social media side. I wasn't as familiar with like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So there was a lot of learning involved there. But I think at the core of social media management and all that, it was making sure that we were building that community. It wasn't just posting our stuff over and over, like, hey, here's stuff from us. A lot of what I try to do is boost other content from content creators and make sure that, if somebody tags us or somebody posts about us, I do my best to like it, share it, comment on it, and just make sure that our community is aware, hey, look what this person's doing with Floriferous or Skulk Hollow or something. And I think that's a valuable piece of, I don't know if it definitely ties into marketing, but I think a lot of that too is just building up that community. And if you see a publisher that is excited about what people are posting and really wants to boost them and give them some, engagement and awareness, there's a positive sort of perception, I think, that just gets built organically and naturally versus, the other route that we could do is just, every day post, here's a picture, here's something we're doing, which definitely I do those things. But that's not really the core of sort of what the social media is and what the community is. We also treat it differently. We have the Facebook group, the Facebook community group, I should say. And that one really is just for sharing what's going on in our community. Everybody's welcome to post. And if I see something and it's not on there, I say, hey, look at this. But the things I did differently, so my role is social media and marketing is kind of a piece of it. I like to describe what I do as a lot of different things.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes, definitely.
Gotcha.
I started off sort of doing some of the marketing, but it was more related to sales and retailer relationships. That has grown into, I do localization, I do some play testing, I do rulebook editing, I do a bunch of communications with everybody, distributor relationships, newsletters, there's probably, a list of 50 other things that I always forget to mention, but it's a lot, but again, that's kind of what I wanted to do with getting into this position, is just challenging myself, doing something cool. And that's where I am.
Yeah, I will admit, I have posted, I think, every single day this week and I post at ridiculously early times sometimes. So it's like 8 o'clock in the morning for us, Eastern Standard, and you're very quick to respond, very quick to retweet as well, which I think that's a nice thing. Coming from a content creating side, like when we're doing the content and everything, not every time is it going to show up on the Kickstarter, especially if we're not doing it from a paid perspective. But when we're just doing it to promote the games and things like that, it's really nice to see that relationship with the publisher where they say, oh, they're doing this, yeah, hey, let's go ahead and share this, or hey, let's go ahead and show this. And I think that's really nice because it does show that you're acknowledging the work that the people are doing. That's really been my experience that I've seen already, just even in this week. Just the constant retweets and everything, which is just, thank you for that. So
You're welcome.
now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk about Mall Peak. And I'm going to let Justin start asking questions about Mall Peak this time.
Oh, throwing me in the fire first.
I'm throwing you right into it. I'm not even asking any questions about. Everybody.
For the survey, you got saucy.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I will tell everybody right now that I love Mall Peak. It's a great game. I could probably talk about it just as much as maybe Jessica could, but just because I'm beyond excited about this game. And I've been waiting for this game since December 2019 when I first heard about it from Keith. So yeah. All right, Justin, go.
Well, so fortunately, I had a chance to play with Chris when I was over there hanging out with him. And so you probably saw some of the pictures I posted on my Instagram. And again, thank you, Jessica, for I believe it was probably you that put that reply on there. But since we're jumping into the deep end, and I know how excited you are about Mall Peak, I want to know which of the Guardians is your favorite to play, because they're all slightly different. I've only experienced one, so I want to know what your favorite is and why.
Oh, it's a good one. And amazingly, I have not played Mall Peak enough. A lot of people who have done play testing and previewing have probably played more than me. Mm-hmm. But if I had to choose, I do really like Saboso, and I know that's the least complex Guardian, the one that you start out with, but I love that he traps the bears.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that mechanic. It's fun. And I think that's another thing that with Skull Hollow and Mal Peak, a lot of the time it's that thematic like narrative or like the story that comes from it. It's not just here, I'm playing a card, I'm taking your bear. It's like, oh no, you took my bear.
Yeah. It definitely, when playing it, because that's when I got to experience it, definitely added a bit of tension, and seeing Chris start to sweat, be like, wait, I'm losing that bear, I can't use him anymore. And so you could see there's changes in tactics as you use that effect against the other player, which is really fun to do.
Yes.
So we've kind of talked about how Mal Peak is a sequel essentially of Skull Hollow. How do they differ? How are they the same? And how do you use them together?
So the same basically is, it's the same structure sort of, where again, it's 2 players. One's going to play the small folk, which is either the foxen or the bears. There's multiples of those, and just sort of, they differ a little bit in terms of, or a lot, I should say. The foxen stick around. They will go back in your deck if they, if the guardian stomps them or kills them, they can eventually come back out. The bears, though, are one time only. You kind of have to work up your rage to kind of summon them and get them out on the board. And then once they take enough damage, they're gone. So they play completely differently in terms of, just the small folk. And then obviously the guardians are always very different. I would say, though, that they're very similar games in general in terms of the system. If you're familiar with Skull Hollow and how that worked, Mal Peak is going to be like, oh yeah, I recognize that. But then you'll see, oh wait, this guardian is completely new. They do that. And the bears are like, what? They're doing that. And there's also the Winter Beast that comes out with the bears. You get to customize which one you get to choose with that one. The setting obviously is very different. This one's a very wintry theme, which we kind of take throughout with there's the shiver tokens that Saboso has, and everybody just has a kind of snowy, icy sort of appearance. So we're kind of building out that world that Skull Hollow and Mal Peak are in. There might be more eventually, but for now it's 2, but we'll see. And then Battle for Boar, how that works together, you can either mix and match them. So there's a couple of different rules just for clarifications on, if you have the Foxen fighting Saboso, Veblen, Quagra, anybody else in Mal Peak, there's just some, easy rules just to be like, oh, that's how that works with them. So you can mix and match those if you want. Still playing just 2-player, just with completely different matchups. And then there's that 3 to 4 player giant Battle for Boar mode, where you've got the Foxen plus the Grizzar. They are battling 2 guardians. You get to pick whichever 2 you want from Skull Hollow or Mal Peak. And it is just a giant battle.
I can imagine. And Chris is playing with the larger minis for the guardians. I love those wooden pieces and seeing them, and how when you choose that, you have that big one that really towers above the bears at the board. I'm going to ask one more question before we jump to Chelsea's questions, but just for the fun of it, do you prefer to play as the bears or a guardian?
Ooh, this is always a tough one. Whenever I win, I'll be like, yes, that's the one I like to choose. And then you stick with it and you're like, no, you know what? I don't like them anymore. I think the Guardians are awesome. I love just the idea of that, but I think I prefer the bears a little bit more, the Grizzar, just because you do get to have those moments where you're actually scaling the Guardian's body on the other board, and you're kind of controlling that, and you get to like kind of experience that. And also just the challenge of figuring out when to actually bring the bears out and how to use them. Obviously it's going to be different with every Guardian because the strategies completely change depending on who you're up against. But I think the bears, but I mean, I'll get back to you after I lose a few times and be like, no, it's the Guardians.
Yeah, I've noticed with the Grizzar that just you've got to kind of learn how you want to go into it. If you go like with Foxen, the Foxen heroes, you're kind of able to just kind of step back a little bit, relax for a little bit, and then if your characters die, you put them in your discard and then they can come back. Whereas the Grizzar, you're probably going to be it's going to be a wiser bet to actually be more aggressive. I've noticed when you're playing as Grizzar, because you want to prevent as much as possible from happening. Like if you're playing as Veblen, Veblen is like putting webs out everywhere, and if you're in an area where webs are, and you leave that area, you're having to go ahead and basically discard a card, and it's like don't want to do that, but that's kind of how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, like with Quagra, there's confusion cards which get added to the Grizzar's deck, and like it's either Quagra is going to try to kill all of the Grizzar, or is going to basically put all the confusion in somebody's deck and cause problems, and that's just going to be more cards that sadly the Grizzar is going to have to deal with. So, yeah. I got excited playing the Quagra. I'm playing Quagra again tonight in my battle for Boar.
Awesome.
It seems you're excited about the whole game in general, the way you've talked about it, and when you wanted to teach me. But Chelsea, what questions did you have?
You asked them all. No.
Oh, well, fair.
No.
I'm sorry.
No. So I'm just being saucy.
No, it's okay. Chris typically does that for us.
So when I was looking at the Kickstarter page, I knew Skull Hollow was a 2-player game, and this one follows suit. But I see that a solo like mini expansion is included in the Kickstarter. And since, we were talking about solo games earlier, can you tell us more about how that plays? And I mean, how it was implemented, because it's a 2-player game. How is it different for the solo aspect of it?
Yep. So it's totally separate. It's like a standalone adventure thing. It's actually, where is it? Runes and Ruins.
Oh my God, he's so cute. He's adorable.
So it's almost like its own standalone product that kind of takes place between the events of Skull Hollow and Maul Peak. So it's sort of like bringing in a narrative experience into it, sort of like an RPG. It's a 30 cards are included, and you are basically just choosing your path through those, and they have scratch offs on them actually. So you're going through and scratching off as you're going through, making decisions, tracking a couple of different things, like you have compassion and your time and knowledge, and everybody's going to kind of play it. I shouldn't say everybody, but you can play it a little differently. It's not going to be, okay, I got to go down this one path and do this, this, and this. You get to kind of choose it. And there's actually a couple cards in there that are scratch off puzzles. So it'll say, like, you'll come across a card and it'll say, like, which area do you want to scratch off? And you may have gotten some clues in previous cards as to, oh, it's that area. That's the one I got to go to. Or you might be like, I'm going to have to take a guess, depending on what you've learned throughout it. So it is a standalone product. We want to make sure that nobody thinks that this makes the game solo. It does not make Skull Hollow or Maul Peak solo.
Okay.
That's been a question a lot. And as a solo player myself, that's a question I ask as well. But it's a difficult process with making the game solo, just because we don't want to have something that's kind of like, oh, it's there. We want that narrative experience of just having, when 2 players play, there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and it's not a set pattern. It's not, even if you play the same Guardians and the same Small Folk and put those together, multiple plays, you're not just going to be like, I'm going to do this. Okay, this is how I won last time. I have to do it this way. There's going to be different changes. So incorporating that into a solo mode does take some development time, and we just want to make sure that if we can do that, it's going to be something that's going to be fun and great for the solo community. Because as a solo player, attacked on solo mode, no, don't give me that.
Yep, if it doesn't fit, just don't include it.
Yes, exactly. So there are discussions about that. It's something that we haven't figured out yet, but it's not something that has been dropped by any means. It's just it's on the table. We will see, but we're hoping that the Runes and Ruins, that solo adventure, it's something. And it's a very different product from what we've done before with the whole scratch off idea, and just kind of exploring this world a little bit, because I didn't mention the big part of it. At the very end, you actually end up with a custom Arctic fox that you can use in Skull Hollow or Maul Peak. So although it's not a solo character. You get your own character sort of to bring into those games when you play 2-player or 3 to 4 with Battle for Boar. But you're ending up with something that is usable within those games.
Nice. Chris is over there making faces like that might be finally a reason for him to play a solo game.
Possibly.
Yes, because you get that extra character, and it's different, and it's like you said, it's a puzzle. It has that scratch off aspect. It's different. That's not something you see often in games, and it gives you like a reward at the end. And you're like, okay, I do this solo, and now I have something that I can keep and continue using. So that's actually really cool.
We're excited. We're hoping people like it. It was one of those things where we've never done it before, just wanted to try it. So that is included with on the Kickstarter. That's free with the Kickstarter, along with there is the Ancient Relics mini expansion that's also free with the Kickstarter, which is just a little extra deck of cards that adds points of interest if you're familiar with it from Skull Hollow. It's the same concept in Malpeak, just with the different board artwork.
Well, that's great, and it sounds like there's a lot of great things going on with this Kickstarter. So just for everyone who's listening or in chat, the Kickstarter has about 18 more days from when we're recording this. So I believe that's the 25th of April is when it goes to.
Yep, should be the 25th. It's one of those ones where time zones. It's the 25th or extremely early on the 26th. So we will say. Just mark it as the 25th.
Yep. So make sure you go and check that out. But now is a good time that we can transition towards our surprise top 5 topic. So we've kind of hinted at it several times without you realizing it. Our topic tonight is in regards to essentially sequels. So games that fall within the same realm or same general mechanic, but it continues from a game that came before it. So we each came up with a list of top 5 games that we consider sequels that we really enjoy, and we're hoping to test you out and have you join along if you choose to. If you can't come up with 5, don't stress about it.
Stress, but lots of stress.
Yeah. So Chris is going to talk about the charity of the month, and then we'll jump into that list. So I'll give you at least a moment to think about it before we move on to it.
Okay. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 24. That's from Hildegard, Curtin, and Warner, 2018. And lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning youth are significantly increased risk. The Trevor Project estimates that more than 1.8 million LGBTQ youth between those ages of 13 to 24 seriously consider suicide each year in the U.S., and at least one attempts suicide every 45 seconds. The Trevor Project is the world's largest suicide prevention and crisis intervention organization for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning young people, offering counseling, advocacy, education, and crisis support. Please check them out at thetrevorproject.org.
Thank you for going over that, Chris. And for sure, we try to support everyone here on this channel and being as inclusive as possible. And we don't want anyone to feel like there's no one that can support them. So either reaching out to us or reaching out to the Trevor Project for support in different ways. For sure, check those out. But talking about the top 5, just a quick clarification. When we talked about sequel games, we all picked ones that are standalone games. So these are typically not expansions. Now, sometimes you can combine them, kind of like you can do with Skull Hollow and Malpeak, but we try to pick standalone style sequels so they can be their own game if possible. But if you can't think of them, you can include expansions if you really want to. But we're just going to jump right into it, and I'm going to let Chelsea start us off this time.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with I go down the list as I come up with them. So no specific order. Dungeon Pets, it's from CGE, and it's the sequel to Dungeon Lords, and you're racing these like monster pets, and they're all like monsterish looking, and you have to race them to sell them, but they can get sick, they can like you have to fulfill like their eating needs and their poop needs and all these other things, and kind of balance it out. They even have like little poop tokens. Sometimes I'm like a 12-year-old little boy, and I find that very amusing. So it's just fun, and it really should be a 3 to whatever player count it is. It blocks out things at a 2-player. It's not one of the worst ones, but I think it plays better at a higher player count. But it's still I still enjoy it, and I love like the little monster and the creatures because they're just funny looking. So.
And then talking about games with monsters, one from my list is Horrified American Monsters. So it's kind of the second in the series. So can kind of be considered a sequel, but it does have its own map, its own monsters and stuff. But I've enjoyed both Horrified and the American Monsters one, and I find it scales well at almost all player counts. A little bit harder the more players you have, of course, but you can kind of adjust which monsters you're using. And I know at least playing with Chelsea in our group, we've enjoyed it every time. Even when we fail miserably, we're always laughing and be like, okay, we need to try again. We need to do this again until we get it right.
It's usually because we don't read the rules right.
Yeah, it happens with games, but it's still a lot of fun. We've enjoyed it, and I've played it even solo, as we've talked about solo games. So definitely one I can recommend trying out. Chris, which one do you want to start with?
I'm going to go ahead and start with, if anybody hasn't played any of the Rising series from the Op, they started out with Thanos Rising, then they went on to doing Death Eaters Rising, then they did Dark Side Rising, but the one I want to talk about is actually the Batman Who Laughs Rising, and it really has worked with what Andrew Wolf had put in place with the original, and Pat Marino really worked hard on tweaking it just enough so that way you can actually kind of journey and battle through all these different villains, all these different variants of Batman from other universes, and then finally you get to face against the Batman Who Laughs, which is basically what happens if Batman basically has no inhibitions and is very much like his counterpart from the comics, the Joker. So one of the characters that I've really enjoyed in the latest comic book series has been the Batman Who Laughs, and I'm a Batman fan. What do you expect? I think Batman could beat Iron Man in a match, and anybody that's listening to this or watching this right now, that's me. I'm throwing it down right there. So, yeah, the Batman Who Laughs Rising from the Op.
Now, I will say that game has an amazing miniature that sits in the middle of it, pre-painted and everything. Can't say enough about it, but let's go to Jessica. Did you think of a game?
I'm looking around. If you're watching me, I'm like, what's on my shelves? So try to remember. But one that comes to mind is it Marvel Villainous or Villainous Marvel? I know we mix up however they do it, but you had the original like Disney Villainous with all the Disney villains, and then Marvel was. When we got it, we actually thought it was just going to be, it's the same exact thing, just in, with Marvel characters. But there's actually a little bit of a twist where you have that shared fate deck versus in the Disney one, everybody has, their own fate deck. This one has a shared one, which has its pros and cons. We liked it most of the time, and there were a few times where we're like, come on. But I think it was a nice twist on that, and just, offering something that's much different in a way from the original, but still worked. We like them both for what they are.
Exactly. That's kind of the key thing about sequels is they do well standing alone, but they can also expand on what you love about the original.
Yep, definitely.
So we'll jump straight back to Chelsea. We can't hear you.
I'm muted. Habit. Sorry. The second one on my list, it's Dinosaur World. It's a sequel, kind of sort of to Dinosaur Island from Pandasaurus games. And I love dinosaurs. I think they're amazing. Jurassic Park's one of my favorite movies. But Dino World took over and like replaced Dinosaur Island to the point that I don't even own Dinosaur Island anymore. And like you're building your park and you're placing tiles, and I had the chance to teach it at Origins, and because there were demos, we only made it to like round 2, like once or twice, and I was like, I just only finished one game, just once. So we went on vacation shortly after, and I think we played like 2 or 3 times. Because I was just I just want to keep playing. I want to like try different things, and they have I had kickstarted it, so I have all like the different like printed dinosaurs, and they all look different and based on the color. So it's one I really enjoy, and I don't care how many times I have to teach it. I still enjoy playing it. So it's one of my faves.
Chris, I believe you had that on your list as well. What did you like about it?
I mean, Dinosaur Island is a great game. I mean, right off the bat, I could say that Dinosaur Island is a great game. But then you throw in Dinosaur World, you throw in all these extra like pieces that kind of go well with it. Like you've got basically these hex tiles that you're just kind of like, all right, they have a chance of going to this exhibit or go to this ride or be able to go to the this little restaurant. And then on top of that, the workers, that does change up a lot because you have different colors. And of course, you can kind of choose that card that might get you more money, or it might get you more, workers to help out towards different things like your movement. And it does change up. Plus, who doesn't like the idea of taking a Jeep and driving through kind of like, let's be real, it's Jurassic Park. I mean, it's like, that's really what it is, and it just feels like that. Except you're hopefully not going to have as many people eaten by the end of the game. But yeah, some people will die. At least you have hopefully some good insurance. But,
so one of the things I would love to say is you roll a danger die. It doesn't matter what you do; you always roll it. Mm-hmm. And obviously, I say that there's always that kid that doesn't listen, that sticks his hand outside the Jeep when you tell him not to, and he gets eaten. That's like my favorite part of when I'm teaching it.
I mean, the kids in Jurassic Park probably should have been eaten. I mean, they were very lucky. They were very lucky. I mean, for crying out loud, that one kid climbs up and gets electrocuted by that electric fence and survives. How is that possible?
And the flashlight, I'm like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Stay in your seat.
Turn it over.
Well, talking about getting lucky, the next game on my list does require a bit of luck. It's kind of pressure luck, almost Yahtzee style, and Dice Throne Season 2 from Roxley Games. Chris, again, also taught me this game. I got a bit lucky with both games having really good rolls while he was unlucky, I will say. That's about the extent of all I need to say about that, so he doesn't go off. But yeah, there's a lot of great characters in that. The custom die and the abilities for each character was a lot of fun. And then, of course, you can combine those characters and play them with the Season 1 characters. So it just expands, and of course, being a sequel, it just expands on that whole thing. But it stands alone on itself, and that you can buy the sets from Season 2. So I really enjoyed that, and because it's always fun to beat Chris, I had to include it on the list for the fun of it. And we'll go back to you, Jessica.
Well, Justin, you took mine a little bit. I was gonna say there's also Marvel Dice Throne, I think, coming out soon, which looking forward to that. I think in that same realm, I don't know if it's an exact sequel, but there's Dice Throne Adventures, which it's a bit of a different product. It's more of, it's still set within Dice Throne. You use the Dice Throne characters, but you're actually going through and sort of having an adventure. Yeah. And I played through that, and that was awesome. It was a really fun campaign type experience. There were cool, there's like, what are they? They're not rare cards. There's like extremely rare cards you can get that are like all foil and everything. I had a cool one. I was really excited when I was playing it. So, and I think that did really well. Again, it's not an exact sequel, but it did build on the concepts, if you're familiar with, from Season 1 and Season 2, and you got to use your character, try somebody else out, and just sort of in a different environment. And again, just a lot of fun. I loved that one. Loved that campaign, and I will play it again.
I think that's a great choice because it also kind of shows that sequels are not always a perfect continuation from the last game. Sometimes they're built within the same world, but in a different part of it. So you don't always connect sequels. So I think that's a great choice, and I don't see why anyone would think it wouldn't connect. So definitely agree with that one. Definitely need to try it out. Chris, we're going to jump to you now.
Okay.
Kind of change up the order.
All right.
one you like to talk about a lot, one of your favorite characters from a TV show, I believe.
Folks, if you do not know that I had a giant crush back in high school of Sarah Michelle Gellar, you have not been listening or watching any of our episodes at all,
We
or
didn't
any of our
know.
live streams. No.
We didn't know. I didn't.
You didn't? What? Okay, I was going to say, what on earth, Chelsea? So,
Sarcasm.
You talk about Buffy all the time.
Of course, I understand Joss Whedon, toxic, but that show was amazing. Yes, there's watching it again, like going back and watching it again, you're just kind of like, there's some seasons where you're just kind of like, okay, I'm tired of Riley. I don't want to see him anymore. Let's just kill him off or something. Yes. And you're glad when he's gone. Yes. And then the whole Spike relationship was kind of cool, except for a particular episode. I'm not going to go into that, but it was a fun show. It's like, okay, hey, I'm at high school too. There's no vampires and I'm not a vampire hunter, but this is a lot of fun and I like it. And, Sarah Michelle Gellar, she was cute, and I was like, I have a crush on a vampire slayer, so I was very happy. But yeah, Unmatched Buffy the Vampire Slayer takes some of those characters from the show, and you get to play as, of course, Willow and Tara, which Tara is still alive. Of course, if you haven't watched the series by now, I'm probably going to spoil everything. But you get to play as Willow and Tara. You can play as Angel and Faith, which, I mean, Faith, pretty freaking awesome, especially in the Angel series. Mm. And then you get to also play as Spike and Drusilla, which if you haven't had the chance to see Drusilla is kind of more of a mind games type character. But then you also get to play as Buffy with either Giles or Xander. You have to choose which one you're going to play with. And it can really kind of change up. But what's nice about it is that all of this was basically taking ideas originally from what was known as Star Wars Epic Duels, which was a fabulous game, but instead of the dice rolling, instead it uses cards, which makes it more strategic in the way that it plays. But if you're a Buffy the Vampire Slayer and you want to use Mr. Pointy to stab some people, by all means, do it. And that is Buffy, Unmatched Buffy the Vampire Slayer from Mondo Games and Restoration Games.
And I love the inclusion of that because, again, it's a typically 2-player style game that you can combine with the other versions of the game or previous versions and make it a 3 or 4-player game. And so kind of just like Skull Hollow and Malpeak, combining them or playing just the 2-player. Chelsea, we'll jump straight back to you. I don't know a good transition to any of your games from that one, except for the number 2 is one of the games you picked. Talking about a 2-player game.
What's a 2-player game?
No.
Well, you can 2's in the name.
Oh. I can be dense sometimes. It happens. I was like, just ignore me. It's Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig by Stonemaier Games. So it combines between 2 cities and castles of Mad King Ludwig, and it has a 2-player variant, which I wasn't crazy about, but I enjoyed the game where with like more people it plays better. So we still kept it. It didn't like cancel it out for us, but I did enjoy the mechanics of the game, and it plays fairly quickly too. So it's not like we're like, and it's not a party game. It expands to like higher player counts without necessarily being a party game. And usually that's kind of hard to find sometimes. So we really did enjoy playing it. And we have the expansion. We haven't played it yet, but I'm looking forward to trying that one out as well.
And I have not played that, but if I remember correctly, that there's almost essentially a co-op where you're scoring between the castles on each side of you. So people next to you affect that castle as well. So I definitely need to try that with one of the game nights. But kind of going along with essentially working together for scoring, I picked Zombie Teens Evolution, which is a continuation after Zombie Kids Evolution. It's almost like a beginner legacy style game. It's small board, plays really fast, typically about 10 to 15 minutes per game. There's about a dozen or so envelopes you can open up as you progress and reveal more things, more rules and such. But I think when we broke it out and started learning it, we played for 2 or 3 hours, just continuing playing and playing, and wanted to open more stuff and trying it out because it plays so fast. But it's one of those just fun, quick little games that you can play with younger kids as well, because I think they're set for like ages 8 and up. Fun, pop, bright artwork. Just one of those different style legacy games that you can get for younger kids as well. And we'll go back to you, Jessica. Did you think of another one?
I have a somewhat odd one, but we'll,
Okay.
we'll see if this matches.
We like odd. We can find a way to connect it.
Sort of a sequel in terms of underlying mechanisms, but going from Rising Sun to Ankh,
Okay.
I think from Eric Lang, that one, it definitely builds on Rising Sun. You can definitely see the parallels there with the area control and the asymmetric characters you're playing as. It's just a very different theme, and then obviously different rule sets, different scenarios actually you play through. That one just comes to mind because Rising Sun is hard to play because it's 3 players plus, but Ankh actually goes to 2 players, and my husband and I started having like a whole competition and like going through and seeing like who would do better, and we sort of had like this running tally, and we didn't play for too long because I won every time, but but it was a lot of fun, just seeing how those mechanisms came through. And it was like, oh yeah, I recognize this from the rule book, but then all right, they changed it like this, and the 2-player mode, I know there's always controversy over the how you kind of merge with another player at the end in higher player counts, which I think is an interesting mechanism. It worked when we played higher player counts, but in 2-player, we don't have to worry about it. So
yeah. For sure. I think that definitely works because some sequels are they're taking the key mechanics and converting it to a new theme sometimes. So definitely a great pick there. And then Chris, we'll jump straight back to you.
Okay. Now, I've mentioned before, I'm a fan of the Azrium series from Ryan Lockett in Red Raven Games. And this game kind of improved a little bit more on the story. It still kept it story driven, and it has been a joy to bring to the table. And I can't wait to play the 3rd one in the series. But the one I'm going to talk about, of course, is Near and Far, which is neat because the base game of Above and Below was just kind of like, it was just a game. But then with Near and Far, they threw in kind of this campaign style where you can actually play it by flipping pages with new maps on each page, which was just completely mind-blowing that they did it in such a nice and neat way. And then you kind of just continue that story, and you actually get to feel this journey. And it's just one of those games that just hits all the right spots. It's Near and Far from Red Raven Games.
So you mentioned that's kind of almost campaign style, and it improves on the first one, in several different ways. Next one on my list is Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. So another campaign style game that does improve on the base Gloomhaven, at least for the standard gamer who is not prepared for long game sessions and long setup times. It's technically considered a prequel. I would put the Frosthaven sequel on this list, but of course I've not got to play it because it's not quite out. But I'm sure we will enjoy it a lot when it does come out, because we've been doing weekends of Gloomhaven right now campaign over at Chelsea. So definitely really enjoy Jaws of the Lion. It adds more characters and it makes quicker setup and everything, and just overall a ton of improvements that it's hard for me not to include it, at least. I believe everyone who enjoys Gloomhaven could easily enjoy that. And then we'll jump to Chelsea.
Okay, so my next one is Imperial Settlers and Pirates of the North from Portal Games. I haven't played Imperial Settlers. I know they have a lot of plans and stuff like that, and it was a little bit too much for me to even attempt to get into it. It was a little bit overwhelming, but Empires of the North was just coming out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to jump on this one from the beginning. And I think I have all but one or two of the expansions, and I really enjoy it. I like how you build your resources, and then you trigger them, your workers, and you got to plan your little engine, while still having like cute little art. And they have different clans, and they say, oh, for your first couple games, play these. We're like, now we experienced players, we're gonna play whatever we want. And that didn't end up well. It never does with us, but we always do that. We're like, we got this. And it just backfires. But we had so much fun. And I just had to stop buying expansions because they weren't getting necessarily played. But I want them all. And I really do enjoy it. I do enjoy the art, and fairly, decent time playing that's not too overwhelming with time. So it's something we can play during the week without feeling like it's a burden or a hassle, and work, dinner time, and all these things. So it's something I really do enjoy.
Definitely a nice choice. And Jessica, did you think of another one?
I did. There's Hoplomachus Origins from Chip Theory Games, which it almost goes back to your pick with Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, because it is a much smaller sort of game compared to the other two larger ones that come with huge maps, and you got a huge battle. This is more, rather than playing on a giant map and having to navigate around, it comes with 3 different smaller battle maps, and you kind of go through like the trials, and sort of actually switching up, rather than just having sort of random units. You get to kind of control, okay, what do I think is going to work against this enemy, and building that up and kind of learning some strategies that maybe you didn't pick up on before because there's just random units that you were kind of making the most of. And there's a nice progression system there where you get to kind of like keep track of like, I'm progressing. If you lose, you kind of, go back down a little bit, and then kind of have to build your way up to the next trial. And I think it's a nice way to get into the series a little bit more. Definitely the price point's better. But also I think it's a little more approachable than seeing a giant battle mat in front of you and being like, whoa, what do I have to do here? Where it's very compact and just, all right, I think I can handle this. I can do some of these things, and just kind of build on that and learn some strategies and have some fun gladiator style battles.
Definitely sounds fun, especially when things are simplified. Makes it easier for new people to experience the game as well. I'll just go and jump in and start off our last of the 5. I have Cartographers Heroes from Thunderworks Games. Of course, I love Cartographers. Heroes just adds more maps, more cards. You can mix and match back to the original if you choose to. But I actually have the whole box set that has like all the expansions and actually came with the colored pencils, which is my preferred way to play Cartographers because it just looks better on the map once you draw it out with colors. But having all the different maps to choose from now, it just gives so much more variety on an already great flip and right style game that it was an easy choice for me. It was the top one for me. It was the first one I thought of when we thought of sequels. And then Chelsea, you also have a similar, but yours is a roll and write instead of a flip and write.
Yes. So it's the Copenhagen Roanoke. It came out right after the board game, and it plays very similar. It just set up as way easier. You get in way more games, and my husband, who does not like roll and writes at all, and will avoid playing them, prefers the roll and write over the board game. So that one gets so much more playtime with us, and it's more competitive for us. So we really do enjoy it, and it still keeps the essence of the actual board game and completing the outside of the buildings. It just switches it up a little bit, and I think they did a really good job with that implementation.
And then Chris, the last one on your list.
A game night would not be a normal game night without some murder in it. I mean, who doesn't like a good murder? So the game that I have, of course, is Chronicles of Crime 1400. Now, Chronicles of Crime was a great game that came out from Lucky Duck Games, and then they came out with one that was kind of a noir style, and they had one that was kind of like a Stranger Things, Goonies type scenarios. But I like the Millennium series. I think that the 1400, 1900, 2400, going through those different games, it's a lot of fun. But who doesn't like having a loyal dog named Percival, kind of following you around and helping you sniff the trail, and then you're having these unique visions of things that might come to be or may pass. And depending on how well you play, you can possibly stop a second murder from happening as you're playing the game. But it's all set around Paris, France, which is just beautiful, and the ambiance and the music, and then even hearing your dog bark. It's fun. So that's Chronicles of Crime 1400 from Lucky Duck Games.
Definitely a solid choice. I still need to play 1400. I know we had a lot of fun with the 1900, and I had fun with the original series. App driven, so it does a great way of kind of one of those, not quite escape room style games, but you're solving a mystery collectively together. So it works very well. And then we'll jump back to Jessica. Did you think of one more to complete your top 5?
I'm gonna dig for this one a little bit,
Okay.
mostly because I'm looking at my shelves and I'm like, what do we own so much of? That would be, my husband picks up all of the LCGs, for better or worse. We own all of them, basically. So I don't know if I think again, it's more mechanisms, but Marvel Champions, the card game, versus Arkham Horror, I think that really changed the model. It's actually, you don't need to buy into that as much as Arkham, where Arkham was like, you need everything. Like that's, or at least that's what my husband has trained himself to believe. And I'm like, we played like 2 scenarios, but okay, we'll have all these fancy boxes and look like we know what we're talking about when Cthulhu comes around. I don't know. But Marvel Champions is more of, you have more control over your hero a little bit. You're building the deck, and it's a little bit more, I don't know, plug and play. I'm like, is that the 90s term? Like that's what, I feel like that's so old, but it's more like you get to choose the heroes that you actually like. You don't need to buy every single set if there's one that's like, this doesn't work. And I think that's a strong suit there, because you don't feel like you have to buy everything. And I think that it's, again, my husband has trained himself. That's what he needs to do. I am much more in favor of, just give me the heroes I want to play as. Let me kind of customize those decks a little bit. And if I want to do something else, then I can get some more. But there's enough there to enjoy it, and it works really well, I think.
Well, definitely a great choice. And talking about buying everything, we'll kind of transition back into what we started everything with. In that Mall Peak is on Kickstarter right now, if you want to help support. So if there's any additional words you want to say about it for everyone listening, let's go and talk about it a little bit more if you want to.
It's cool. I mean, we've talked a lot. And again, I love to talk about it, but again, I appreciate it when the community is talking about it too. That is what's cool for me, when someone's like, hey, this looks good, I think I'm going to get it. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. And just seeing what previewers are putting out there right now about it, it helps to strengthen our position, because obviously I'm going to be biased. I'm not the most objective party here when I say it's great, it's amazing. But I do think that it's not that we're putting out something that we think is great, but everybody else is like, yeah, this is whatever. It's a fun time. Again, we have the biggest part of this, Pencil First Games. A lot of people know us for the nature line with Herbaceous, Floriferous, all that sort of relaxing types of games. But we do have another side, which is completely different. It's not the relaxing side. It's more of the adventure side, the narrative side. And I love just hearing how people play the game and enjoy it. We've had Kickstarter comments from people who say, yeah, I've been playing, Skull Hollow with my kids for years since it first came out. We love it. That's been like one of our favorite games, or that was like my kids' first foray into board games, and they taught their siblings how to play board games with it. And it's just, these are the stories that are cool to hear, and just to know that, we're bringing people to the table, bringing some fun experiences to everybody. And that's a lot of what we want to do. We're big on that.
And we love that, because that's a lot of what this podcast is about, is sharing stories of personal experiences in the hobby and why we love gaming and the people we love in the industry. So that's why we're really appreciated that you joined us. Chris, are there any other closing remarks we have for the end of the episode?
I mean, everybody's going to know probably that I love Skull Hollow, so being able to play Mall Peak this whole week has been a blast, and I enjoy the game. So, folks, I will tell you, of course, I recommend it. I'm going to leave that right there. And if you're listening to this or watching this, then I'm going to let you go and make your judgment for yourself. But you can also check out the website and actually see some of the previews on there. And you can also check out some of our live streams and video content that we've done with the game as well, where you can make your decision as well. We aren't, of course, going to say you have to or you don't have to, and if you aren't able to, but you do like what you see, please make sure that you share the campaign, because when you share it, you also promote it, and by promoting it, you're helping other people see it that might be able to, pledge for it. But other than that, I am beyond thankful for you coming on, Jessica. It's been a pleasure having you. And especially with putting up with my weirdness and odd, strange tangents that I go on. Luckily, there's a reason why we have a script now. So, but yeah, folks.
Yes.
Yeah. So, folks, thank you very much for being on here with us. I'm Chris.
I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Justin. Thank you for listening to the Meeples of Joy podcast.
Recording stopped.
So the recording has stopped. Yay!
I'm
All
so
right.
jealous that you guys have gotten to play the game because I haven't.
I know. When we played it, for anybody watching right now, I played the game.
Sending me pictures, and I was like,
I sent pictures and video, and I'm like, look at what we're playing. This isn't even out yet. This is coming out like next week and stuff.
I was like,
Oh, not even next week. This was like a couple weeks ago. So
yeah.
Like, yeah. So yeah.
Because I was flying back from Gamma, and I was getting all these pictures, and I was like,
look at all this stuff we're playing that you're not here for.
Like,
Chris was like, only share after a certain date once it's on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
don't share the pictures on my phone.
Yeah.
Chelsea, you were at Gamma?
yes,
Did I not see you there? I must not have.
I did not see you there.
It is fine. That was my first Gamma ever.
Me
that
too.
That was my first time doing. We had a booth, and I was like, "All right, I'm going to handle this with Ed," and it was great, but it was a lot.
It was a lot. It was like a whirlwind of. I was like, we're getting like 4 hours of sleep every night. Like I was like, in the mornings, I was like, I have to get up and go eat something so I can manage to.
I am East Coast time, so I could not pull it together.
No, I was waking up at like 4 and then falling back in sleep, and then that just made it worse.
They turned the water off in our rooms at one point. They were like, "Oh, by the way," like when I arrived, that was like how I got in. Like I don't know when it was, like one night, and they were like, "Hello, thank you for staying with us. By the way, tomorrow we're turning off the water for like 4 hours." I'm like, all right. And I figured I'm going to be at the show. This is fine. But there was a moment when I was like, all right, I'm going to go back up to my room. And I'm like turning on the sink and I'm like, oh no, it's broken. I'm like, oh, there's no water.
That's craziness. Now I was originally looking at going. I got Gamma did a thing with media, which was really cool that they worked on this, and I think a lot of people got involved, and somebody I think donated some money to make it possible for a lot of the media people and personalities to be able to go out to the event. I was excited. We were accepted for it, and luckily, and Chelsea applied as well, so Chelsea was accepted, but we didn't go. We didn't go because I had just started a new position in the hospital. I was like, okay, second week of working, I could just be like, hey, I'm going to go for a week away from working on databases and stuff. No, but I heard it was a great time. Chelsea sent a lot of stuff about what it was like and the fun that was had. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's been a joy to be able to see these type of things come out. And I mean, I can't wait. I mean, I'm happy with what I'm playing with tonight. So, I mean, that's me, though. So,
those meeples are huge.
Oh, I love it. This is Grack. Grack is, I think, is kind of like the starter one that you want to play with when you're playing through Skull Hollow.
We ignore that.
And then Saboso is the one that you want to start with. But tonight, I'm going to do Quagra. Now, Quagra is unique because Quagra is basically can only have so many cards in their hand. and can only do so many actions. And they can really only do what I think 2 cards and 2 actions. So they get 3 cards, but they can only do 2 actions. And it's just a lot harder to defend yourself, which can be rough, especially when you're trying to confuse. So trying to get power cubes is so important in the game. Trying to steal the rage from the Grizzar. But yeah, like I thoroughly have enjoyed this game, and I'm not going to stop gushing about it, so I need to stop doing it. But yeah, folks, thanks for being in here in the chat with us tonight. If you have any questions real quick, please feel free to put them in the chat for Jessica. And then what we're going to do is we're going to raid into somebody else that's currently doing a live stream. One of the things that the Twitch board game community is all about is sharing the love and actually just making it a point to let that other content creator know, or that media person know that they matter and that their voice is being heard. And we want to share that love with them. So if you're not following whoever it is that we're going to go raid into, please be kind enough and raid into them. If you have a Prime subscription and you haven't used it, or you're Amazon Prime owner, you can actually use your Prime subscription to go ahead and support that person as well. So that's something that's really neat that you can do, and you can do that every month. It's been a joy to be able to do that.
You do have to select it every month.
Yeah, you do have to select it every month, and if you select it at a particular date, like if I select it on the 15th, I won't be able to do it again until the next 15th. And if I do it later, then that's going to push it back longer. So. Yeah. But that's something that we're going to do. So, but Jessica, it was a joy. It was a joy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I am thoroughly enjoying this, and I can't wait. Folks, we're going to be back on, just so everybody knows, at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Beth is going to be sitting across from me. Elijah is going to be my teammate. Daniel is going to be the Grizzar, and it's going to be a battle between the Guardians and the Foxen Heroes and the Grizzar. So, and my hope is that the Guardians win, but winning conditions is a little indifferent in this one. It's if one team wins or meets their conditions, they win. If the other team meets their conditions, they win. So it's kind of like that back and forth, but it still plays quick, because it's not just like, oh, I have to do mine and you have to do yours. No, it's you have to do one of those options. So either go ahead and kill Grak or kill Quagra. Kind of, come up with a strategy. And it's going to be wild. I'm sorry, folks. I'm excited. I'm just thinking, I'm dwelling on it already. But yeah, so let's go ahead. Let's talk about who we're going to raid into real quick. I'm going to click on my little raid button, see who's on here. Let me check.
Let's see, I'll check too real quick.
Yep. Tim Reel's doing code names right now. That's always fun. Paula Deming's playing as well. Raina88 is on. Let's go ahead and look at, let's see. Tony Plus One is doing...
Time Roller's doing something.
Time Roller, yeah. Time Roller has always come into our chat and has been very kind, spending time with us. So we're going to go ahead, show a little bit of love back to Time Roller. And so if you do stay with us for just a little bit, we're going to go right into there. Feel free to follow. That's a nice way of sharing the love. And if you have a Prime subscription, you want to go ahead and subscribe to them that way, please do so. That's a great way to support other people in this hobby and tell them that their voice matters. So we will see you all later. Once again, thank you to Chelsea, my encourager of chaos. Thank you to Justin, the one who actually writes the script and keeps me in line for the most part. And a special thank you to Jessica from Pencil First Games for making this possible. I asked her, I think, what was it, Monday?
Yep.
So I asked her Monday, hey, do you want to come on Thursday for Mall Peak Week? Because I was like, I'm going to just basically make every day, instead of my normal content, I wanted to just make this a full week of Mall Peak because, well, it's a fun game. It's pretty cool. That was a horrible pun. All right.
Let's go raid.
Yeah, let's see it. See y'all later. Bye.
Bye.